At some point of time, you must have come across a liquid cooling setup and wondered how a PC liquid cooling setup works. So in this video, we'll give you a quick tutorial on how to set up a liquid cooling PC using soft tubing. So the material we are using today is black EPDM tubing. This is a soft tubing. There are two types of tubings. There is soft tubing and there is hard tubing. So soft tubing is flexible, it lasts longer, it is more convenient, it is easier to assemble. The reason we are using a black EPDM tubing and not a PVC clear tubing is that PVC clear tubing tends to leave some microplastics into the coolant which gunks up the pump and eventually your pump will stop. The EPDM tubing has no such microplastics. The life of the liquid will be much more as compared to when you use a clear PVC tubing. The first step whenever you are trying to build a liquid cooling setup, a custom liquid cooling setup, is that you have to plan the loop. So whenever you plan the loop, you have to make sure that all components get as cool liquid as possible. So the water block that we are using today has a pump built in. This is provided by us from Voltage. The pump is connected to the radiator and then the radiator is connected to the graphic card. The liquid from the graphic card will then travel back to the radiator and then the cool liquid from the radiator will again go back to the CPU. So this is the loop that we will build today. It is very important that you make a loop this way and not connect the graphic card directly to the processor. If you connect the graphic card directly to the processor, in that case all the hot liquid from the graphic card will directly be fed to the processor and the processor will thermal throttle. So our graphic card will first go back to the radiator and the cool liquid from the radiator will go back into the water block of the CPU. So basically all components will get fresh cool liquid as compared to hot liquid from each other. So building your custom liquid cooling PC is fairly simple if you are using soft tubing. In this setup, a 240mm 4cm radiator for our graphic card and a 360mm 4cm radiator for our processor. The pump we are using today is DDC, which is already installed on the water block of the processor. The reason why we are using this hybrid combo is that because it saves up a lot of space, it looks much cleaner and it is easier to build as well. Now you might be wondering why soft tubing is easier to build. The simple and the fair explanation is this. It can easily be cut, it can easily be molded, it can easily be folded. You don't have to bend it like you have to do it with PETG or acrylic tubing and hardline tubing PC builds. So we'll cover this topic as well in a future video, but for today we will be using soft tubing. So now we'll connect one component to the other. We have already installed all the components right now. So now we'll start the build process. For the liquid, we will be using distilled water for now. If the customer wants to upgrade to colored coolant, he or she can do that. But the drawback of colored coolants is that again, it leaves gunk in the pump that can eventually lead to a dead pump. So coming to the fitting, today we have the compression fitting. This is in chrome finish. This is one of the most secure type of fitting that you will find for soft tubing, and the reason behind that is that this part goes on to this part, the tube goes in between and then this pushes the tube inside and make sure that there is no leakage and the tube does not come off. Alright, so we'll start our tubing process from the first outlet. This is the most convenient way to plan and execute your liquid cooling build. Otherwise you will get confused midway and then probably you will end up with some bad bends that you don't require. Alright, so this is our outlet of the pump and this will go to the radiator inlet. The reason why this is happening is because, as I mentioned, that the hot liquid from the processor should go to the radiator before entering the graphic card. Alright. Another thing to note is that you don't want to mix metals in your custom liquid cooling loop. The reason behind that is if you mix metals, then there will be buildup of ions and that is bad for your liquid, and basically your liquid will go bad very soon and you will have to keep on flushing your liquid cooling setup again and again. So today we are using copper radiators, a copper water block with nickel plating and chrome finished compression fittings. So basically we are using the same metal all over around, and even if you are using different metals, then they are finished in a way that they are alloys and they do not emit any ions in the loop. So starting with the first bend, we have to make the bend from the outlet of the water block to the inlet of the radiator. There is no inlet and outlet of the radiators per se. You can either put it this side or this side, it's up to you, it's totally up to you, but this side will look much cleaner and then this will inlet into the graphic card. So you basically eyeball the length of the tube that you require and then make a cut. While making the cut, you have to make sure that the cut is perpendicular and not at a slant. Otherwise, if it is at a slant, then the chances of leakage will increase. This is a special type of tool that helps in cutting the tube. This you can also find from a regular hardware shop. So as you can see, this tool has made a very clear and clean cut. There are no abrasions, and it's very smooth, so the chances of leaking from this end of the tube is very low. So you just have to put in the bigger end of the compression fitting on one end, alright, and then you just have to push your tube inside. Just make sure you also turn your tube clockwise while doing so that you have a better fit. More or less your tube will come in a bundle, in a circular bundle. So as you can see, there's a curvature, there's an arc over here. So if this arc would have been on the other end, let me show it to you. So if this arc is on the other end, then the chances of the tube kinking is higher. So make sure that your tube is always towards, the arc of the tube is always towards the bend, alright? And then the bigger part of the compression fitting, the cap side of the compression fitting will go onto the tube, and the tube will be inserted in the radiator like this. Now you just have to tighten the fitting. In liquid cooling, make sure you hand tight all the products and you don't use a plier to do it. The reason behind that is all the components are very fragile, and a hand tight fit is good enough. These fittings have a textured surface so that it helps you create friction to twist and rotate them, but it will definitely take a toll on your fingers and your thumb because they are quite hard to turn. Even if you want to use a plier, use a silicone plier or use a thick cloth between your plier and the fitting. Now our first connection is done. We have connected the water block successfully to the radiator. So basically the hot liquid from the water block will now go to the 360 mm radiator. Now the radiator will basically cool down a liquid through this flow, and then this end of the radiator will provide cooler liquid which will fed to the inlet of the graphic card. Then the graphic card will produce the heat, and then it will again heat up the liquid. Then this end will be the outlet for the graphic card, and this will be given to the radiator for it to be cooled down. This will be the inlet for the next radiator, and this will be the outlet. This will be connected to the inlet of the water block. So now we have done all the bends and all the fittings are tightened, all the tubes are connected. So one might say that soft tubing looks a bit shabby, but that is true in a way, but it definitely is much easier to maintain, and over the duration of your use of the PC, you will definitely feel proud of using soft tubing over hard tubing, because hard tubing is much more difficult to maintain as compared to soft tubing. Coming to the next part, now since all the bends are done, we'll first do a pressure test. So we'll connect our pressure kit to one end of the loop over here. Then we'll apply some pressure into the loop, that in case if there is any chance of leak, then it happens right away and not after we fill in the liquid. So we'll leave the pressure applied for approximately 30 to 45 minutes, and we'll monitor the needle. It should not drop from its pressure point in that duration. So after that test is done, we'll show you how to fill in the liquid into the loop and start your PC. So this is the pressure testing kit I was talking about. So this is how you fill up the loop with air, and the pressure will build up. If there's a leak, the needle won't go clockwise, it will stay there or probably go reverse. We'll fill this all the way to 2 bar pressure. So it has almost been 45 to 50 minutes, and as we can see, the needle is right there as we left it, and it hasn't moved even a little bit. So this kind of concludes that our loop is intact and there are no leaks. Now we can simply unscrew our pressure testing kit and start filling up our liquid. So this is how we will fill up our liquid. There are multiple ways to do it. Some people use a push fill bottle, where they push the bottle and the liquid travels to the reservoir. However, I like to use this ghetto setup where I use a reservoir and then that is connected via tubes. The reason why I do this is because it's more convenient to do to fill the loop using this, as I get a longer reach. And also, if there is any spill while refilling this part of the filling kit, then the PC is far away from it. So before we start filling up our loop, we make sure that we install plenty of tissue paper, and we have to monitor it very properly. The reason behind that is we are using distilled water which is non-colored. If there are any leaks, then we'll have to see it and then stop the filling process. While filling up the liquid, the fill point should be at the top so that the air can escape easily. Since the setup is in a way where we cannot have an air out, so we'll have to fill up the liquid in very slowly so that the air inside the loop can escape from the same pipe. So now we'll start filling up our loop. The level of this reservoir should be higher than level of our pump and this reservoir so that the air can escape easily. So right now we have only connected our pump and nothing else onto the PC. We'll short our 24 pin cable, our power supply, and then just connect the pump, so that even if there is a leak, so that no other components get shorted with the filled liquid. So as you can see, our liquid is filled up now. You might be hearing some disturbance from the loop. The reason behind that is there are air bubbles when we fill the loop, and when the air bubbles hit the spindle of the pump, they make some noise. So it is completely normal and natural. Just let the loop with some air outlet run for 30-35 minutes, and all the small bubbles in the loop will exit from the loop from the air exit. So now our loop is done. Our liquid is flowing inside the loop and everything is okay. The tubes are fine. We have tested after applying the tempered also. Everything is shutting down closely. Everything is fit properly. So let us know how you liked our video in which we explain the entire process of tubing liquid cooling setup. If you also want a setup like this, you can definitely visit our website www.voltedpc.in, or hit us on Instagram or DM us on WhatsApp. The number for the WhatsApp and the Instagram link is in our description. So do like our video, do share it with your friends, and subscribe our channel for more such content. See you next time. All the best, guys.